Yes, everybody, welcome back to Talking Wolves. Welcome back to a brand new match preview on the channel. Hope you guys are keeping well and safe. And we're here today to preview Wolves versus Nottingham Forest, a Monday night fixture under the lights once again at Molineux for Vitor Pereira's fourth game in charge of the club, his second home game as well. Giving my thoughts, the latest team news, we'll have the opposition perspective, of course, later on as well. Before we kick off, our channel partners over at Football Prizes once again have a cracking Wolves prize up for grabs this week. It's a signed and framed Matheus Cunha shirt. I think this one is going to be popular, so be sure to get involved with that with the link in the top of the description. There are some instant win prizes in there as well, including a Strand Larsen signed shirt and a Ryan Aït-Nouri signed shirt as well. So be sure to get involved for your chance to win. But Wolves hoping to extend this nice little run of form that they've got going on. It's going to be a really tough remainder of the month, really. And from this game onwards, throughout January and the majority of Feb, are really tough fixtures for Wolves. Look, Forest have been in unbelievable form. I still think, like, player for player, we could compete with them, certainly. But for whatever reason, Nuno's got them playing some fantastic football. And you guys, Wolves fans and the fans that have sort of followed us properly for 5, 6, 7 years know that under Nuno, you sort of went into games almost feeling like you were going to win every single match. And it feels like that's what he's got at Nottingham Forest right now. They've won 5 on the bounce. They're in a really nice position in the Premier League table. And it will be interesting to see if that continues as well. But Wolves are in some nice bit of form and momentum themselves right now. But, of course, a few things that are going to be holding us back slightly. The main one is Matheus Cunha. We have had news of his suspension, and unfortunately he's going to be missing this game. The good part about the news is that, of course, it's only 2 matches. One of them will be this game against Forest on Monday, and then Bristol City in the Cup as well next weekend. But he's going to be a massive loss for Wolves, certainly this week. And I'm really intrigued to see how Vitor Pereira sets the team up going forward. Hwang scored, of course. I think he will favour Hwang, but I think his overall game still leaves a lot to be desired, Hwang. So he really needs to step up if he does get the nod on Monday. In regard, the rest of the team, Totti's out injured for a short while. The team news was interesting as well by Vitor Pereira. Pablo Sarabia is still out injured. Boubacar Traoré still not ready either. Sasha Kalajdzic wasn't mentioned, so you'd assume he's out as well. But Mario Lemina out again. Obviously adds fuel to the fire of him potentially moving on amid interest from Saudi Arabia, which I did speak about on yesterday's video doing the transfer news as well. So in regards to a starting lineup for Wolves, I'll probably go with something similar to this, where Jose Sarr will start in goal again. Rumours about Sam Johnston's future, but Sarr seems to be the number one under Vitor Pereira right now. Left wing back of Ryan Aït-Nouri, right wing back of Nelson Semedo. The 3 centre backs, I think Doc will keep his place, Santi Bueno, and I think they'll probably go with Craig Dawson once again. And in that back 3, although there are strong rumours and it looks likely that Agbadou is going to be signing for Wolves, which again I mentioned on yesterday's transfer video. Midfield 2 of João Gomez and Andre. Now Andre has maybe a slight doubt about him. Tommy Doyle, I would assume, would play for him if there is any doubt. Andre did fly to Brazil earlier this week due to the birth of his new child. And then the front 3 of Strand Larsen, Gonçalo Guedes, and I'd probably say Hwang Hee-chan based on what I said earlier. But I think he needs to step up. He certainly does need to step up. But Strand Larsen and Guedes as well, who've been in okay form themselves, need to really contribute. And overall, I think it's going to be so difficult with Matheus Cunha out. He's been fantastic, but ultimately, Wolves need to make sure they're not overly reliable on one player, because anything can happen. He could get suspended again. He could get injured throughout the season. Of course, he had a little knock in the Spurs game. We don't really know the extent of that injury as of right now. Hopefully, it's only minor. But like I said, I believe that Wolves have the talent to compete against Forest. It's crazy how much football changes in sort of 6 to 12 months, because a lot of football fans would have said how much they would have thought Forest was struggling. But, they're getting, good results, defending fantastically well. The 2 centre-backs are tough players, so it's going to be an intriguing task for the Wolves attack to hopefully continue a pretty strong record in front of goal so far this season. But I had the pleasure of once again speaking to George, who's a massive Forest fan, to get his thoughts on Nuno's side so far this season and what we can expect to Molineux on Monday. So then, guys, delighted to have George back on the channel once again to talk all things Nottingham Forest. George, thanks for jumping on. I bet you can't believe where Forest are, in the new year. Third in the Premier League. I just looked at some of your fixtures as well. Quite favourable fixtures between now and the end of Feb as well. I mean, it could continue. I mean, you must be in dreamland at the moment, mate.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's nice to come on with Forest excelling over Wolves. Normally, we've been very close to each other in the league, or you've been slightly ahead of us. And yeah, if you'd have told a Forest fan this at the start of the season, I don't think anyone would have believed you. We started the season reasonably well, obviously, with points against you and against Southampton. We beat them, but going away to Liverpool I think we thought that would be the pinnacle, because obviously we beat Liverpool, the only side to beat Liverpool. And then we wondered where it would go from there. But we've just excelled every single game. It's just a joy to watch. And coming into December, we obviously lost to Arsenal and Man City away, coupled with a win in Ipswich in the middle of them. And we were thinking we had a really tough, if you look at the fixtures that we've won 5 in a row from, Brentford away, Spurs at home, Villa at home, not easy games, United away. And we just approached them with so much confidence. And I think the fact that we've not been in this position before, there's no pressure on the players. They can go all out for the win, not fearing defeat because of where we are. It's just fantastic. And yeah, I really can't believe this season. It's the best season I've ever been alive for. I grew up with Forest in the Championship, and to have us third in the Premier League halfway through a season is absolutely unreal. Yeah, it's incredible.
It puts you in a great position going into the second half of the season as well. You're on 37 points. I mean, you're 5 clear of Newcastle, who are sat in 5th already. And it's just looking at your fixtures. I mean, the games that you win, it's really weird probably in the Premier League. I fully believe everyone can beat everyone on their day, but probably from outside the traditional top 6, I think anyone from that 7th to bottom spot could probably go into every game thinking we can win this match. And I think that's exactly what Forest have done in regards to matches. I'm looking at some of your recent wins. Spurs, for argument's sake, went down to 10 men, but you beat Everton, who I would have probably backed you to beat anyway. You beat Brentford, who you have every right to beat. Even Villa have been off this season. So you've gone into every game, giving teams matches and winning those games that, I don't think it's daft to think that Forest couldn't win these games anyway. But when Nuno was at Wolves, we had that where we could go into every game with a confidence that we'd get something out of the match. Is that what Nuno has given you, like the Forest team and you as fans as well? You go into every game thinking we can get something from this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that Spurs game, Spurs only went down to 10 men with about 2 minutes to go. So we'd already pretty much won that game anyway. Yeah. But yeah, it's just amazing to go into the games with so much confidence. And Forest haven't been blowing teams away. I think we beat West Ham 3-0 and Everton 2-0. Apart from that, there's no big scorelines in there. So, and you look at our goal difference compared to the teams that are up and around us, I think ours is about 7 or 8, and then Liverpool's is about 34 or something. We're not blowing teams away, but we consistently find a way to have enough to win, to make other teams play exactly that fits into our favour. We love to play on the break. You probably experienced that as well.
Yeah.
And Nuno just finds a way to make teams play perfectly against us. Like Everton away, that was probably the one that surprised me the most, because our football's set up to play against teams that maybe dominate the ball, and we're happy to sit in and break with pace when we can. But Everton sort of do that in a similar way with sort of long balls, but they don't like to have the ball either. So I was a bit wary as to whether, are we going to get something from this game? But Everton in the end had 63% possession. I think that's the highest they've had in the game this season. And we just found a way to let them have the ball, didn't bother us. And then when it mattered, we got 2 amazing goals. You look at the 2 goals we scored at Everton. They're just such confidence, and you can see the confidence flowing through everybody's veins. And that comes from Nuno, a manager you guys know very well. I'm so happy for him because he came in just over a year ago and we got 2 big wins early on against Newcastle and Man United. And it looked like it would be the turning point. But then we had points deductions, we had poor form last season, and people were a bit, I think stagnant about Nuno, and over the summer particularly were sort of maybe looking elsewhere. But I just honestly, I love the guy. He's doing so much with the community now as well. I think even maybe more now than he did at Wolves. He's more mature, you can tell that, but he's a bit more reserved on the sidelines, but, he does things with the community. We've got a disabled football team in Nottingham that he's coupled up with and met a few times. His demeanour, he's so respectful. Like when we played Cooper against Leicester, he was very respectful of him. And, I just really love him. He's a really nice manager. And you can tell that the players really are buying into what he's doing, because last season we stayed up on the last game of the season against Burnley, and the players were pushing him towards the fans to do fist bumps. And I think you can really tell that the whole club is united at the minute. And that comes from the guy at the top, from the manager, who's just got everything going right in his favour at the minute. And yeah, I bet you guys, as much as you don't want another team to do well, I bet you guys are slowly looking on with a bit of happiness that Nuno's doing well for us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he, like you were saying earlier, sort of best season of your life. For people in my generation, Nuno gave us that. We had back-to-back 7th place finishes. We were into Europe under him as well. And I think, he did a lot of community work for Wolves. I think early part of his time at Wolves, he was a little bit erratic sometimes on the touchline, a little bit overexcited. And I think,
with Warnock especially.
Yeah, exactly. So he's probably calmed down a little bit now, but it's weird because I think a lot of teams probably had Forest in and around sort of probably the bottom 5, bottom 6 again. But
I think we did as well.
Yeah, but at the same time, I know with Nuno's calibre as manager, it sort of almost doesn't surprise me. And I think his stint now at Forest is going to start for people to give him a lot more respect as a manager as well. I think after the Wolves, he struggled a little bit during Project Restart at Wolves. And I think a lot of people sort of slowly stopped rating him as a head coach. Obviously, he did fairly well in Saudi Arabia. He had the stint at Spurs in between as well. But personally for him, I'm very happy with that. But
and is it a surprise as well to see a team like us doing so well for you guys? Because I don't know, I feel like maybe you don't see it as a surprise because you've had him.
You or Forest fans might shut me down, and this is probably a lazy point of view. I look at that and I still think sort of man for man, I still think Wolves have probably got a comparable squad with Forest, but I think credit to the players and credit to Nuno as well. I think defensively, the two guys that you've got at the back now are just top players. Murillo and Milenkovic, who have been players that Wolves were linked with years ago before they went to Forest as well. But I think they've slowly starting to get things right. I know the first season you came up with the transfers, it was a little bit what's going on here, and I think now that's calmed down. A lot of the transfers, your hit rate on transfers is very, very impressive as well, I think. So it's interesting. What I mean, I mentioned a couple of players there, George. Who else has been shining so far for Forest? Who are the players that are really who are the players that are shining for you boys so far this season?
I think it's been in leaps and bounds, because of the type of team we are. You would say at the start of the season, maybe Murillo and Gibbs White were our two standout star players. Yeah. But it's been I think with a team like us who don't, we're not one of the top sides, we don't really have a natural standout player. It has to be collective performances. So Matt Sells in goal this season. He's won Save of the Month already, I think. He's kept 8 clean sheets, the most in the league, and he's really stepped forward. He had a sort of tough start to the season, but I mean, at the weekend, I watched him against Pickford. Obviously, Pickford's Everton keeper, and Pickford did really well, to be fair, made some good saves. But he's so erratic, and it just filled me with confidence that we've got Sells in there who's so reliable, so consistent. Milenkovic just came in next to Murillo, as you mentioned, and he's allowed both of them to flourish. Murillo's a young player, likes to take risks with the ball, and Milenkovic is just there behind him to clean up anything that he gets wrong, head it, kick it, and he does it so well. He's such a clean defender as well. I think he's been booked once, if that. For a centre-back who's played every game for us apart from the first one, that's pretty incredible. Ola Reiner, I think, has been up there with the best fullbacks of this season. He scored a brilliant goal. He attacks, he defends. There's, nobody gets past him. And going forward, he just glides across the pitch. You look at midfield, Ryan Yates, incredible. That sort of Nottingham man can be leading our football club in the Premier League week in, week out. And if you look at opposition Twitter fans, if you search Ryan Yates into Twitter after an away game, you just see Liverpool, Chelsea fans, we hate this Ryan Yates, and I just absolutely live for that. Elliot Anderson, who we signed from Newcastle, it was 35 million, but it was inflated because we sort of did a deal with PSR, and he's my favourite player at the minute. He just controls midfield, he's never shies away from the ball, and he connects our back to our front so well. Gibbs White, obviously, he's really came into form recently. He's started to get those numbers, got a goal, got an assist the weekend before that. He had a good start to the season, but I think now the numbers are starting to come for him. And I've gone through the team here, but maybe the one that's taken the eye most has been Chris Wood this season. I think he had 3 without a goal before he scored at Everton, which for him this season has been a long, long time. And a year ago, when we signed him, people were very negative about him because he's, he looks a bit clunky sometimes. And when he's out of form, he doesn't look great. But honestly, we found a way to play to his system, to get balls in from the sides. And his finishing is electric. I think he's got one of the best conversion rates in Europe. He spearheads our attack. And even when he's not scoring now, he does so much off the ball, got an assist at the weekend as well. He's really grown into the striker that has really spearheaded us up the league with his attitude and with his performances. And that's without mentioning Elanga as well, who's in a really good form as well. So it's been a collective display and not many stand out for me. I think it's just been such a good team performance. Everybody's been on top. And that's why we are where we are, because we've got so many players in form and playing at the top of the game.
Yeah, Chris Wood is a player that Wolves tend to really struggle against. I've just searched it now. He scored in 12 Premier League games. He scored 7 goals against Wolves.
Oh,
He's got a
wow.
very, very good record.
Because he scored in the reverse fixture, didn't he?
Scored in the reverse fixture. He did score a hat-trick against us for Burnley once, which obviously does help those numbers a little bit. But yeah, he'd scored five goals in 3 games for Burnley against us as well. We had real trouble defending against him. So yeah, that probably doesn't bode well. Morgan Gibbs-White is obviously always a hot topic going into this game, George, as well. And Wolves fans, I'm sure will probably give him a tough time at Molineux on Monday. But I think if Forest do get European football, Wolves do get a nice little bit of extra money as part of that, massive deal that was, back a couple of years ago. But I think massive season for him as well. Breaking into the England setup. Is there anything missing from his game? I mean, you said there just starting to add the numbers now. Is that one of the biggest things that he needs to start doing? Putting the ball in the back of the net a little bit more and maybe getting a few more assists to his name.
Yeah, I think that's probably the thing he's missing, and maybe why he isn't a sort of big six side, because he's got so much confidence. He's a leader as well. When Ryan Yates doesn't play, he is the captain, and he's rightly so the captain. There's not many other candidates that would take that off him. And yeah, it's been a really good season for him this season. I think Lee Carsley being there helped, obviously, the England things. And I was at Wembley when they played Finland and he didn't come on the pitch, so I wasn't very happy with that. But yeah, I think numbers is probably what he's missing, because he does so much off the ball. He frustrates fans as well because he takes risks.
Yeah.
Often when they don't come off, they cost us, or we lose it in a very sort of crucial area for our attack. So often he annoys fans, but you've got to let him do that, because otherwise, if he loses that, he loses everything that he's good for.
Yeah.
So I think in front of goal, he does get into some good positions as well. I think he could be more clinical. I think he's got to be targeting sort of 8-9 goals a season. I think he got 5 the first season and 3 last season or something like that. So if you can get towards that 8 and 9 mark with goals and assists, maybe over 10 assists or something like that, then I think that's where his aim will be, because in terms of his performance, if you just took stats out of it, you'd say he's such an integral part. He's probably our most unique player, in that you could put someone else there and they would do a completely different job. Anderson played there when he was injured and suspended and still did the job. But I think Morgan has what no other player in Forest has, and we'll be lucky to get another player like him if he has to move on.
Yeah, his energy is he's always interesting whenever you watch him. He just always seems to be, not in a negative way, always seems to be centre of attention. I think the way that he plays football. And it will be intriguing. I'm sure Forest fans will see this, whether it's this month or whether it's in the summer, because you're doing so well. The interest or the reports and rumours linking your players to maybe moves away. But is there much news in regards to incomings? Do Forest have to do some work? Is there some sort of news that they might back Nuno in to try and push to actually get into Europe? I mean, like you said earlier, maybe you are off the radar a little bit, which is good in a way for you guys. But are the board looking at maybe bolstering the squad a little bit more to help that push?
I think firstly, we're not 100% sure where we are with PSR, so we've got to factor that in, because obviously it's the last year before the rules change, so we need to make sure that we don't get penalised in that way. And I think our priority is contracts, really, because we're in a reasonably similar position to Liverpool. Obviously, our players aren't as high profile, but we've got Olaraina and Chris Wood, who both have contracts running out at the end of the season. So I think that has to be Forest's priority. There's been talks that they've opened, or rumours that they've opened talks with Olaraina, and I really wouldn't be surprised if Chris Wood's quick to follow. So they're Forest's priority. In terms of the squad, I think we could possibly do with another striker, because Wood and Awonyi both have had no injuries this season, and that's something that's never happened. So I don't think you can rely on them both not getting an injury. Obviously, Wood getting injured would be far worse than Taiwo at the minute. But we could do with maybe a young, pacey striker to give us something different in that regard, and to be there if one of them gets injured. And then maybe I think a left-footed winger as well. All 4 of our wingers are right-footed. I looked at that Sainz, who plays for Norwich, who I think they've dried up recently the goals for him, but he's played really well this season and last season. So that's somebody I was looking at. So a left-footed winger and a striker. But I don't think there's anything sort of screaming out at Forest. Just maintaining things and keeping the squad together is the priority, I think.
So today, Awonyi might be available for transfer this month. I didn't know how reliable that was. Do you think that would be something sensible for Forest, or maybe to bring, because he had a lot of issues with injuries. I mean, he was in great form when he first joined you boys, but yeah, injuries have really like held him back, haven't they?
Yeah, that's the thing with him. I think when he's not playing like he hasn't this season, he seems to be okay to come on for these 20-minute cameos. But when he's playing 7-8 games in a row, I think that then it takes its toll. So it'd be a shame for Forest to see him go, because we bought him when we came up and he spearheaded our attack for 2 years. And, you know, his strength is something. I mean, he bullied Saliba and scored a brilliant goal for us against Arsenal. He came on against the weekend against Brantford and Tarkowski, and they both didn't know what was happening. So he's a really exciting player to watch. But I think he's clearly number 2 at the minute, and if Forest were to bring in another striker, I think that would open the door for it. I don't think they'll let him go without doing that.
Yeah.
But if they can recoup similar to what they bought him for, maybe for a bit more, then it might be a wise business thing to do. But from a fan's point of view, I don't think we want to see him go, because I think just for nostalgia more than anything, we love him.
Yeah, he was a good player for you boys. But George, before we let you go, what are you thinking? I mean, you guys are on an unbelievable form at the moment. You're not just third in the table. I think, have you won the last 5 in the league?
5, yeah.
But, so, I mean, looking for 6 on the bounce, which would be an unbelievable achievement for you guys. But what are you thinking in terms of a score prediction coming to Molineux on Monday?
You see, I really hate saying Forest are going to win, but it's hard not to at the minute, isn't it? Because obviously you guys have had your sort of new manager bounce. Is it 3 in a row now, or 2 in a row?
3 unbeaten, 2 wins, 1 draw.
Yeah. So we're come playing you in a tough time, but you can't really not be confident with Forest at the minute. You know, especially our away record, it's the 3rd best in the league or something like that. We've been away to Brentford recently, somewhere that teams don't win. We've been away to Everton, somewhere that, you know, Man City, Chelsea and Arsenal all failed to beat them in the last 3, and we went and beat them. We went to Man United before that and beat them 3-2, which probably out of those looks the most easy result at the minute. So, you know, I'm never going to predict Forest to win, because it never happens. But I do come into the game with some confidence. So I'm going to say, because of our strong defence, but our capability to score a goal, I'll say 1-1. But deep down, I think we might nick it. But I'm not going to admit it to anyone.
No, I think Wolves fans probably would take a point. Like I said, it's interesting, because I certainly think, like I said earlier, I think player for player, I think maybe we could match Forest. Cunha's going to be a massive miss for us, huge miss for us, and that's what my concern is going into this game. Is he's literally been the spearhead of a lot of our good moments so far this season. So I am intrigued to see how we cope without him. This is thankfully the only Premier League game we are missing him for. But George, thank you very much for jumping on. Where can people find you and your socials if they wish?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I'm not going to argue too much on the point about your players getting over ours, just because I'm on the Wolves channel. So,
I said earlier, I think defensively you guys have been brilliant, but I don't know. You have got some of your boys are stepping up massively. To be fair, I mean, in terms of form, Chris Wood, I like Strand Larson, but Chris Wood's form's brilliant. I still think, as much as Wolves fans despise him, I think I've always thought Morgan's been a very good footballer. So. But yeah, we'll let the football do the talking on Monday, I suppose.
Yes, I like I've got you backtracking, Dave. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter it's George Edwards 05 with 1 E between the George and the Edwards. Or you can search 1865.football into Google. That's the words 1865.football to find the links to the podcast that I do. And I also do match reports for thefamousclub.co.uk as well. Brilliant. Thanks, Dave. Pleasure to always jump on here.
Yeah, no worries. I'll make sure I leave a link in the description for people checking out those socials. And apart from Monday, mate, best of luck for the rest of the season. I'm sure I'll catch you next year as well. All being well.
Thank you, mate.
Cheers, buddy. So big thanks to George once again for jumping on the channel. Appreciate that. I'll make sure I leave a link to his channels in the description down below. And as always, guys, let me know your thoughts and score predictions in the comment section down below as well. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll have all the post-match content for the Forest game and loads of transfer news and updates throughout the month of January as well. So your support is always appreciated. Of course, Happy New Year as well, because I think this is one of the first videos of the new year, potentially. But yeah, until the next one, guys, look after yourselves. Fingers crossed it's 3 points for the Wolves on Monday, and I'll see you on the next one.